Okay, I want you to imagine a world that's been completely sealed off from time, a place that's running on its own ancient rules while the rest of the planet is rocketing into the 20th century. Today we're going to unlock the gates to that exact world, the Forbidden City, right in the middle of the final, glittering, and honestly, suffocating days of Imperial China. And we get to see it all through the eyes of someone who really shouldn't have been there, Princess Ling. She was educated in France and then, somehow, becomes the first lady-in-waiting to the most powerful woman in China, the Empress Dowager Cixi. Let's step inside. Right off the bat, the journey tells you everything you need to know. It starts in the pitch black of night, a 3-hour ride just to get to the palace walls by 6 in the morning. This wasn't just a commute, it was a pilgrimage. It was a daily act of separating yourself from the normal, everyday world to enter a realm that demanded your total devotion before the sun even thought about rising. It just hammers home the incredible, deliberate isolation of the entire imperial court.
So, what was it really like once you got past those massive gates? Our first section here is going to set the scene, this feeling of entering a world that was literally sealed from time.
And this is the most important thing to get your head around. The Forbidden City wasn't just a bunch of fancy buildings. No, it was a psychological fortress. It was this self-contained universe, a machine that was built to run on centuries of rigid, unchanging tradition. Basically, a bubble designed to keep the scary, messy, modern world out. And right at the very center of this universe, pulling all the strings, was the Empress Dowager Cixi.
And that's exactly what makes our guide, Princess Ling, so amazing. I mean, she'd been educated in Paris, she spoke multiple languages, she totally understood Western customs, and then bam, she's thrown into the very heart of this ancient system. She becomes our eyes and ears, a true outsider on the inside, giving us this incredibly rare modern viewpoint on a world that was trying with all its might to resist modernity itself.
This absolute meticulous control really showed itself in the daily routine, starting with the Empress's morning. It was, well, a masterclass in ritual, opulence, and just total granular control over everything. Now, what's so fascinating here is the sheer ceremony of it all. This isn't just getting ready for the day. It's a precise, totally unvarying ritual. She wakes up when she feels like it. The socks have to be silk, the ribbons tied just right, the shirt a specific pale pink, the gown embroidered. Every single step is laid out. It's the first thing she does to establish order in her universe each and every day, through complete and total control over her own body. And this quote just brilliantly shows you who she was. This isn't a suggestion, right? It's a command. And it's based on the highest authority there is, her own personal taste. The jade butterfly is too green. It kills my gown. It seems like such a tiny detail, but it reveals the immense power she had. In her world, if she didn't like a color, it was objectively wrong, and it had to be fixed immediately. Her will was the law, even when it came to something as small as a butterfly pin. And when she wanted to change that pin, believe me, she had options. Ling was put in charge of just one of the Empress's jewel rooms. And in that one room, there were 3,000 boxes of jewels. Just try to picture that for a second. It's a staggering, almost impossible amount of wealth to comprehend. This opulence wasn't just for show. It was a physical expression of the dynasty's divine right to rule. But underneath all that luxurious silk and priceless jade, there was this deep, deep anxiety. Her pillow actually tells you everything. It was basically designed for paranoia. That hole in the middle wasn't for comfort, it was a listening post. It was there to make sure that even in her most vulnerable moments, while she was sleeping, no one could get near her without her hearing them. The gilded cage was beautiful, for sure, but she was always, always aware of the threats inside. This strange mix of absolute power and this really deep-seated fear basically defined the entire court. Which, of course, brings us to our next section, power plays and paranoia. We're going to look at the weird business of running an empire that felt like it was just adrift from reality. So this fundamental duality, it defined everything. On the surface, the court projected this image of unshakable, divine power and order. But underneath it all, as Ling quickly saw, it was run by a profound sense of fear. Fear of foreigners, fear of rebellion, and just this constant, nagging anxiety that their perfect, timeless little world was actually incredibly fragile and always under threat. So how do you cope with a reality like that? Well, with incredibly elaborate, fantastical escapism. The court plays were these surreal spectacles. I mean, you had goddesses rising out of giant silk flowers, shape-shifting monkeys battling gods with 3 heads and 6 arms. It seems like the more unstable the world got outside the Forbidden City, the more magical and wild the fantasies had to be inside. And this need for spectacle, it seeped into every corner of life. A single meal, just one meal, could have 150 different dishes. Even the bread wasn't just bread. Oh no, it was sculpted into tiny dragons and butterflies and flowers. Every single moment was another chance to perform the dynasty's overwhelming wealth and power.
But this whole performance was very carefully managed, especially when outsiders were involved. Here's a perfect example. Cixi was going to host some foreign diplomats, so she ordered her entire personal world to be redecorated. Her favorite pink silks were all torn down and replaced with sky blue, a color she absolutely despised. She would literally live in a space she hated just to project a very specific, calculated image. It's the ultimate combination of her paranoia and her absolute mastery of political stagecraft.
But no amount of stagecraft could stop what was coming. The dynasty was in its twilight years, which brings us to our final section, a dynasty's twilight where we start to see the cracks in that gilded cage really begin to show.
And here it is, the tragic voice of the emperor himself. He sees that the country needs to reform, he has ideas, but he is completely and utterly powerless. I am not my own master. In that one sentence, he just lays bare the truth of the whole empire. The man on the dragon throne is a prisoner, a figurehead with a mind of his own, but zero authority to actually do anything.
And this wasn't some kind of state secret. It was a public performance of his submission. Every single day, in front of all the highest officials in the land, the emperor would sit on his throne, right next to Cixi, and he would stay completely silent. She was the one who spoke, who decided, who ruled. He was just a living symbol of a power that he no longer had. So what was the official policy in this twilight era? Well, inertia. Just do nothing. Both the Empress and her most trusted advisors, they all believed in this slow, cautious approach. Don't abandon tradition. Only adopt Western ideas if you absolutely have to. Their mantra was basically, we have plenty of time. But they didn't. The world was changing at lightning speed, and their refusal to keep up, well, it would turn out to be fatal. And yet, in a private moment with Ling, Cixi reveals this stunning flash of self-awareness and regret. She compares her own reign to a piece of jade that used to be perfect, but the disastrous Boxer Rebellion created a flaw, a crack in it that could never be fixed. It shows she wasn't just some blind tyrant. She was a complex, intelligent ruler who actually understood the scale of her own catastrophic mistakes, even if she couldn't undo them. And that leaves us with this final haunting question. Ling's account gives us this unparalleled peek inside a system that was designed to last forever, a gilded cage of ritual, opulence, and paranoia. It was a world of immense power that was, at the same time, terrified of its own fragility. And in the end, its greatest strength, its strict adherence to tradition, became its fatal flaw. In a system built to be so rigid, was change ever really possible?